Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sean. Here's another week in review. Beginning with reading and starting with DNFs, I decided to pull the plug on Henri de Balzac. I only read like a grand total of like 4 pages of this book. And so I mentioned it in my previous weekend review where I started reading it, and I couldn't at the time say anything about what I just read. Even though I started it the previous night, I couldn't recall a thing about the book. And then, once I thought more about it, I remembered like the book is about like this printer in like the late 1800s Paris, and he says to someone like, oh, to have large font you have to pay me more because it requires a lot of ink. And then the guy says, okay, well, what about small font? And the guy is like, oh yeah, for that you have to pay me more because it takes more time to arrange the letters and everything. So basically the book, and I like looked up on Wikipedia to see what the book was about and what like Henri de Balzac, what his writing is like, what is, what he's popular for, what he does good. And it said on there that what he's most famous for kind of is just describing like Parisian life and like the class struggle. So he'll show different types of characters from across like the lower class and stuff. And I guess it's just supposed to like show, I don't know, just the class struggle and how these people are working and they're getting, manipulated or, a raw deal from their bosses or whoever. So basically it's kind of I don't know if it's like necessarily Marxist or socialist really, but yeah, it's basically class struggle. The only ones you'll really hear talk about like class struggle are like communists and, socialists and stuff. So that is just definitely not for me. That's not why I didn't like it though. The problem was just the prose of the book. So like I said, when I tried reading it last week, I read 2 pages and was just like, ugh, I wanted to DNF it right there just because it was so freaking boring. Just the wordiness of the book. There was like long paragraphs. There was a lot of hyphenated words. There was a lot of semicolons. Those things were bothering me. It just wasn't enjoyable to read. So, I put it down for probably like, a week basically. And so I tried reading it a few days ago. And so I began reading, page 3 or whatever. And like halfway into reading the page, I was actually thinking about like the most traumatic experiences from my life, like just things that haunt me, just traumatic experiences in my life, because I would rather think about those things than think about whatever crap I was reading. The book was just so utterly boring. I just started thinking, I want to think about the worst moments in my life, just the things that I utterly regret, the things that, just really wounded me deeply, because I would rather think about those things than try to read this just slog of a book. So then I was kind of like, wait a minute, why am I thinking about this? I should be reading this. So I tried to lock in and keep reading. And again, I just began to skim. And so then I started on the next page, like page 4. And again, I started to skim. I just was losing interest. So he just cannot hold my attention. So I know this guy is like been praised or whatever for his depiction of like the class struggle or whatever, and just showing like, oh, this looks so, I don't know, like he's just writing so well about the struggle people face or whatever. But the thing is, it's not actually good. It's not enjoyable to read. I don't know who these characters are. I'm not interested in them. I don't like them. I don't like the prose. So, yeah, I mean, I think for him being praised for like, oh, he writes about the class struggle, that's fine and all that, but you have to write it well. You have to write a book that is enjoyable to read, that is entertaining to read. You can't just write a book that's like, oh, it's authentic to the class struggle. It has to be actually good to read. And the prose of this guy, Honor de Balzac, he just isn't interesting. It's just boring. His prose is not good. Now, I will say that he's a French guy, so he probably almost definitely wrote in French. And when reading translated works, things just do not translate across languages, and also especially across eras and stuff. So reading this in French, and especially if you know that period, completely different experience. So I am only reading an English translation or whatever of this 1800s book, and it's just not for me, you know? It's not in words I'd really understand or whatever. So yeah, I can't really hold that too much against the author because it's a translated work. So in French, and if like you're in this time, you know, if you're in this period or whatever, at least if you know French, if you're able to read in French, it may be a completely different book. It may be beautiful prose, but it just doesn't translate into English very well. Or it could just be this specific translation or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, I just do want to point that out, that reading a translated work, you're not reading the original author. You're reading the translator trying to put those words into words you'd understand, you know? But you miss out on a lot simply to just does not translate. So anyway, yeah, after like 4 pages, you know, I couldn't remember the first 2 pages after I read. I was skimming page 3. I was wanting to skim page 4. So after that point, I just knew this author's prose is not working for me. I do not like this. I do not care that he's well liked because he depicts the class struggle. I want to read something that's actually good to read, that's entertaining to read, that has some good writing. I'm not seeing any of that in this author. So his other book, I think Pierre Goriot, or however it's pronounced, that's another book on the top 1,000 list, 1,000 Books to Read Before You Die by James Mustick. Balzac also has another book on the top 1,000 list called The Wild Ass's Skin. So what's funny is actually this book, I looked up like what's the best book by Balzac to start out on, because, you know, Lost Illusion, Pierre Goriot, and The Wild Ass's Skin. I've been looking for that in the bookstore, but I've never seen a copy of it. It said on there that Pierre Goriot or whatever, even though that's kind of largely considered Balzac's masterpiece, kind of, that one is said online is kind of a difficult book to get into just because the writing is kind of difficult. But it said Lost Illusion is kind of a good entry point to Balzac. So yeah, me just not being able to get into this book at all, you know, DNFing it by page 4, that really makes me think, yeah, I'm not going to like Pierre Goriot at all. I'm not going to like The Wild Ass's Skin if I could ever find a copy of that. So Balzac really plummets on my like to read list, because yeah, I just could not get into this book. It's not even a book I hated, like where I just look at and think, oh, he's a bad writer. It's just not good. It's nothing that interests me whatsoever. So yeah, anyway, I've been talking way too much about this. This is kind of how I am sometimes. I only read 4 pages of this book, really just skimmed 4 pages of this book. Really, I probably only really like thoroughly read like just a paragraph or 2 of this book, but I still am able to talk so much about it. Just because I have things to say about it. But anyway, that's it. So yeah, DNF'd after 4 pages, just could not get into it. Did not like the prose at all. Do not care how popular he is because he writes about the class struggle. It has to actually be fun to read, entertaining to read, and it's not. So yeah, moving on. Next, since I DNF'd that book, I started to read another book. So the one I took, I mentioned in, I think, my previous video that I switched my 26 books to read in 2026. Originally, I don't know if I still have it here, but I had a copy of Amor Towles, The Lincoln Highway. I was going to read that, but I decided to switch to this book, A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. So I started to read it. I am just 19 pages in, so just like the second chapter or whatever. Actually, I'm kind of liking it so far. I think it's pretty solid writing and all that. It's gonna kind of sound funny, but kind of my issue with this book is basically this book so far, it's talking about this like previous aristocrat, like from the days when Russia was under the Tsar or whatever. He's kind of an aristocrat, I think, from before that time, before the communist revolution. And so the new communist government or whatever is kind of like, taking his stuff and whatever. They're taking his property and all that. So it's showing kind of the persecution this guy is enduring. And what I kind of don't like about that is I know this book has been very popular on BookTube and stuff. But it's showing kind of the problems of the Soviet Union and communism, like just how repressive it is. And the thing is, so many people liking it, I think most of those people who like this book are deep down socialists, they like that kind of stuff. They would vote for that kind of stuff. But then they read this book and they think, oh, this is a good book. But it's like, can you not see he's like talking about the persecution that your ideal society would create? Like, you guys want this kind of socialist, government stuff, like eat the rich, And this guy is basically that. He's a aristocrat guy. He's a rich guy. And the communist government is just, taking all of his stuff and whatever. So I think, he is supposed to be a sympathetic character, like undergoing or whatever, encountering or, withstanding, or I can't quite think of the word I'm trying to, say. But he's, suffering from all this persecution. And yeah, so it just kind of bothers me that so many people like this book, but they'll still vote for the exact things that, caused this. So that just kind of bothers me a little bit. Not any fault of the writer at all. But yeah, I'm liking it so far, which is quite stunning, I think, because usually I do not like popular books, and this book has been all over BookTube. So I was just thinking, I'm going to hate this book, but so far I'm liking it pretty well. I think it's pretty solid writing. I'm not having a problem with it so far. So yeah, I'm actually pleasantly surprised about it so far. So far I'd say this is actually pretty good. So that's surprising to me. Because usually I think modern readers are not good at figuring out like good books, A lot of the books people nowadays say, oh, it's a great book. It sucks. But this one, so far, I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty good book so far. So I'm quite surprised about that. Next, another book I actively read this past week was Robert A. Heinlein's Starship Troopers. I forget if I was reading it this morning or last night. I kind of want to say this morning. But what's basically happening in this chapter is the main characters are joining the military. And it's interesting to me because I tried joining the military myself back, oh gosh, when I was like, 18 years old or whatever. And so I went through a lot of the same process this guy is talking about. So he's talking about going to the recruiting station and the recruiter, like, they ask you what type of jobs you're interested in. But then they kind of also tell you that, we might give you a job you're looking for, but if you sign up, we're going to give you any job we want and you're going to do it. And you may just sign up for 2 years or whatever. But if a war breaks out, we're going to keep you as long as we want, kind of. And that's just pretty much how, my experience went. And that's what it says in the book. So he does some stuff that makes it more science fiction-y, like he's talking about, like space flight, jobs and all that. But otherwise, it seems like it's really quite true to how it actually is to sign up for the military. So it's not really all that fantastical of, a recruiting system or whatever. I mean, it's pretty much how military recruitment actually goes. And so, yeah, just reading that chapter or whatever, I just recalled a lot of it from my own experiences. And yeah, so that was just kind of interesting to read. So I'm liking it so far. Okay, and next I got mail. What's in the package? What's in the package? Let's open it up and see. Whoa, geez, almost killed myself. It is hard to open. It is what will be the 6th draft of Arabian Dawn. So this is a new draft copy of one of my books. I previously talked about how I finished making the red pen edits of this book into the computer. So this will be the 6th draft of Arabian Dawn, the 4th book in the Trevor Knight series. So what I'm going to be doing sometime is edit the book with a red pen. And yeah, so I'm going to do 2 more edits of this book, Arabian Dawn, before publishing it. So yep, that just looks really nice. So this is going to be the 6th draft of the book. I have actually 2 books that could be in the editing stage. So there's Arabian Dawn, the 6th draft of a Trevor Knight book, and there's also Keeping Fire, the 5th draft of a Samuel Creed book. So I've actually started to edit this book with a red pen. Man, look at all that. But this book, Keeping Fire, it would just take a while. It's a lot of work to edit, and I've kind of been burnt out on editing. So I really haven't been editing this very much at all. Like I say, I've been mainly working on writing Babylon Dithers. But then when I got this book, Keeping Fire, I was kind of like, Arabian Dawn, I was kind of like, okay, I think I'll just, keep this aside. I don't really want to edit right now. But I'm kind of thinking a little bit more that I may just put this book, Keeping Fire, aside, like just kind of like permanently put it aside. Basically what I've had it on my desk, so like if I ever did want to edit it, it's right there, even though I like very rarely do that, just because I don't really have time or energy to do editing right now. So what I think I'll do is I'll like put this away like on my bookshelf, like I'm just not going to be doing that at all right now, and have this book by my side, by my table, on my table. And if I ever get the itch to edit, or if I'm ever like going in town and am going to be like waiting for an appointment or anything, so I just have like, whatever, 10, 15, 20 minutes to myself in town, I may bring this book, Arabian Dawn, and just chip away at editing. So that's probably what I'll do, because this book, Arabian Dawn, it's going to be on the 6th draft. So I only want to do 2 more edits of it. So it's getting pretty close to publishing. And I'm already talking way too much. In the past, I've mentioned that I wanted to publish Keeping Fire before Arabian Dawn. But now I'm kind of thinking I'm just going to publish Arabian Dawn first, just because I think it is closer to being able to get published, and I kind of enjoy it a little bit more. So it's a little bit easier to actually get the motivation and energy to work on Arabian Dawn. And because it's a 6th draft, it's not as much work, because at this point I'm just kind of doing really minor editing, like just getting rid of a word here or there. I'm not doing very comprehensive edits. So yeah, so I think this book will kind of move into my like standby editing book or whatever. So not like currently every day editing it, but maybe once a week, maybe I'll edit, a page or 2 or whatever while I'm just waiting for an appointment or whatever. So the 6th draft of Arabian Dawn. So just 2 more edits to go of this book, and it will be ready to publish. Okay, the only other thing I really have to say is about my writing. So this week I've been continuing to write the 1st draft of Babylon Dithers, the 5th Trevor Knight book, the sequel to Arabian Dawn. That's going pretty well. Just like last week, a problem I'm having once again is sort of self-doubt and procrastination, because I'll be writing a scene or writing a chapter and I'll just begin to think, this isn't very good, this is stretching on for too long, I need to cut this scene down, I need to cut this paragraph down, this is a really bad line of dialogue, this is a stupid line, this is not funny, is the character like being unlikable or whatever. Just a million thoughts flowing through my head as I'm writing it, where I just have that devil on my shoulder or whatever saying like, oh, this isn't good, don't write this, don't write that, cut that, whatever, you're doing the wrong thing. I keep like hearing that devil on my shoulder, But like I said last week, what I need to do for first drafts is just to tune that out completely. The only thing I need to do at this moment is just to write. It doesn't really matter how good it is. I just need to keep writing. And yeah, because I like to say that I don't know exactly how the book is going to go. So even if I do not write something that's right for the chapter I'm currently on, maybe it's going to be right for a different chapter in another part of the book. So maybe that like line of dialogue or anything, that description of a character, that backstory of a character, anything, it may not belong right where I'm at, but it may fit somewhere else. So I don't need to think like, oh, if it doesn't go here, I shouldn't write it, you know? I could go ahead and write it. I could find out a good place for it later. Maybe it belongs in another chapter. Maybe I need to rewrite it. Maybe it needs to get cut entirely. But that's not a decision I need to make right now at this point. The only thing I need to do is just to write, just to get as many words as I can out onto the page, get all my ideas out onto the page, and later I could figure out what's what, you know, what's good, what belongs where. So yeah, it's just a process of trying to like keep telling myself like, don't worry if it's not very good. Don't worry if this is running on for too long. Whatever, any kind of problems I'm having with it, just to write it, and later I could figure out exactly, you know, what to do with it. So I think last week I'd written the prologue and I think the first two chapters of Babylon Dithers. Now I am on the, I think, 8th chapter. I don't really like talking about word counts because I think it's kind of like, why do writers need to talk about word counts so much? I think it's kind of like writers really talking about word counts is like guys comparing the sizes of their wingding doodles. Like, oh, mine is this many inches. Oh, well, mine is this many inches. Oh, well, mine is this many inches. So writers are like, oh, I wrote 2,000 words. Oh, well, I wrote 2,500 words. Oh, well, I wrote 3,200 words. And it's just writers like, you know, kind of bragging about their work. Like, ooh, I've written more than you. Don't you feel bad about yourself? So yeah, I don't like talking about word counts. But the reason I say it is just because it's a way to kind of mark a writer's progress, like just to know like, oh, you know, the book was that big and now it's that big. So, you know, it's just showing, you know, something to, you know, be proud about for yourself, like just to see like, oh, I've written this much. And yeah, so it's going pretty good. Like I say, just that devil on my shoulder at parts saying like, oh, this is no good. You got to change this. One of the big things that was happening this past week was when I wrote Trevor's arrival into Iraq, he's talking with his customs official at the airport. And I was just like, Trevor is really maybe being unlikable here because he's being pretty sardonic, which is Trevor's like sense of humor kind of. Like, you know, Iraq is being invaded by ISIS, and so this customs official is like, why have you come to the country? And Trevor is like, you know, tourism, you know, I just want to check out the archaeological sites and all that, do some shopping. And the guy is like, you're here to join ISIS. And then Trevor's like, no, bro, I'm on the other side. And Trevor was just really annoying that customs official. And so I was just kind of thinking, you know, readers may not like Trevor based on this introduction. So I was kind of thinking, you know, I'm writing this wrong. But again, just that voice on my shoulder, just telling that voice to like, shut up, you know, don't worry about it. When I finish the book and get around to the second draft, I'll have a better idea of what to do with Trevor, like his growth as a character. So maybe I'll want him to be much more solemn or whatever, you know, maybe I'll want him to be much more serious or whatever, you know. Basically, once I finish the book, I'll have a better idea of, okay, when Trevor arrives in the country, should be his attitude. So yeah, you know, just don't worry about that. I could figure that out later. I guess another problem I had is the last chapter I wrote. It's where Trevor meets with this Iranian general because he wants to see if Iran can help them rescue his friends in Mosul. And I wrote probably close to 10 pages of Trevor talking with this Iranian Special Forces commander guy, because there's a lot of stuff that they would have to talk about. Like, Trevor shows up on this military base, so the guy has to ask him, like, who are you? What are you doing here? And Trevor kind of wants to ask, like, hey, can you guys help rescue my friends? And, they're basically American and British Special Forces guys who are trapped by ISIS in Mosul. And so that's like, Iran would be like, we don't care about them, let them die. But Trevor kind of wants to talk to them to see if Iran could help. And so it's just those two kind of talking, Trevor and the Iranian general. And also the Iranian general talks about, like, they look up Trevor's history. And, in the past, like, it's pretty well public information that Trevor has assassinated the previous leader of ISIS. And then Trevor was also, like, fought against Turkey in Afrin, the city in Syria, and killed some Turkish soldiers and wound up going to a Turkish prison from which he escaped. So the guy is like, you fought with the Kurds in Syria, you fought against Turkey, you killed Turkish soldiers, you escaped from this prison. So there's a lot of stuff they would have to talk about, Trevor and this Iranian general. So it's just going on for like 10 pages, these two talking. And that's all that really happens. They're just sitting in this room talking. And so I just think a lot of readers may be like, oh my God, I've been reading this chapter long enough. I want to go to bed, but I don't want to quit mid-chapter. So I think a lot of readers may just think like, I'm not enjoying this chapter, and this is only like chapter 7 of the book, so I'm just going to quit the book now. I'm not enjoying this, like this 10-page chapter of these guys talking. I don't like this. I don't care about this. That's kind of what I'm afraid readers will be thinking, but I don't really think there's anything I could do about that, because they have to have this conversation. There's just things they would not leave these issues to talk about them another day, like, oh, I'll talk about this stuff with you in another chapter. They would have to talk about this stuff now. This is important for now. And so yeah, that's kind of bothering me. So it's nothing I know I can cut. There's just nothing about it where I'm looking at this thinking, oh yeah, I could cut them talking about this, I could cut them talking about that. They need to talk about all this stuff, but it's like 10 pages long. So I don't know, I think that's just something I can't really do much about. What it actually reminds me of is there's this scene in Arabian Dawn where Trevor and the Saudi Princess Adila, when they first meet, they have like a 6 or 7 page chapter talking about light rail. And that's all it is. It's just Trevor like, let me talk to you about the benefits of light rail and why trains are better than cars and why buses are better than cars and all this stuff. Why cars are bad for cities. Why cars are bad for the environment and all that. Like 6, 7, 8 pages, Trevor just talking to this prince about that. So I think readers may read that chapter and just think like, oh my God, this chapter is so boring. So it's kind of the same thing. Trevor shows up in Babylon Dithers and talks with his Iranian general for just like 8 or 10 pages, just talking all about this stuff. But it's not really stuff I can cut. So I don't know, it's just kind of a point where I know readers may want to give up on this book because of this long chapter. But yeah. So that's the last chapter I wrote. So again, that just kind of has me doubting myself, just thinking, oh, I'm already going to lose readers. Readers are going to quit the book by this point. But, just telling myself not to worry about that. No one reads my books anyway. But yeah, so anyway, I only actually have like 2 pages left of my original draft. Like I say, I wrote the book a couple years ago, like the first 8 chapters. So all that is left is just about a page or 2 of what I originally wrote. After that point, it would be all new going forward. Blank, uncharted territory. So that's kind of intimidating. So yeah, really just this next chapter is the only thing I have something previously written. So after this chapter, or like halfway into this chapter, everything from that point is going to be new. Anyway, I think that's it for the writing stuff. I know, again, I'm sorry I tend to talk too much, so I talked way too much about Arabian Dawn and about Babylon Dithers. So yeah, I'm sorry. It's actually kind of disappointing to me because I started doing these week in review videos, and I thought, when I started the first one that I may not be able to do these consistently because I'm a very inconsistent booktuber or whatever. I don't usually read a lot, so I don't have a lot to say. And so I was like, I can't really do weekly wrap-ups because I think I just wouldn't have a lot to say. And would I have the motivation to film a video every week? I did not commit to doing one every week, but so far I've done a weekly wrap-up every week. But these get really bad really bad views. So a lot of my weekly wrap-ups, I think only like 3 people may click and watch them. The rest of the views I think are all from me. So yeah, these just aren't getting any views. So that kind of really makes me second guess myself, like just thinking no one is watching these weekend reviews. No one is interested in this. So is it worth even filming and editing these videos when no one watches them? Because usually my other videos tend to get like upwards of 50 views per video, maybe 100 views, but kind of a little closer to 50 or 60 generally, whereas these weekend review videos just get like 4 or 5. So I don't know. But the reason I am kind of tempted to keep doing it is because I'm at least being consistent with this, because I really struggle with consistency. So to be able to do a booktube video every week, that's kind of an accomplishment for me, just to do something every single week, just every Monday, film, edit, and post a video. So I'm kind of getting in the habit of doing that, and it's also kind of giving me a little bit of motivation, because it's like, oh, I want to write a chapter of Babylon Dithers, or edit a chapter, or read a chapter, or whatever, because that way I'll have something to talk about in my weekly review. So it's kind of been motivating me to be more productive. So even though these aren't getting like any views really, I think for now I'll still continue them because I think they're good for me. Even if these videos aren't enjoyable for anyone else, they're useful for me because they give me some kind of motivation. They give me a weekly task. Every Monday, film, edit, and post a review or a video. So my channel just doesn't have like no videos for 2 months, which has kind of been what my channel has been. And it also helps me be more productive because it's like, oh, I want to at least read one chapter of a book. So I do that. So these week in review videos are really kind of helping me to be productive. So yeah, it's disappointing not getting any views, but I just have to kind of think like, I'm not really doing it so much for views. It's more useful, beneficial for me that the videos actually help me because it gives me motivation to do stuff. So yeah, so I think for now I'll just continue these videos because they're good for me. I wish they were more entertaining for you guys. I don't know exactly what you guys would like. Usually some of my short reviews actually get a lot of views. Like I posted a short review of, maybe I have to look it up. Oh, shit. Let's look it up. So my last week's week in review video has 19 views. And again, probably like 17 of them are from me. My last short review I did of Fifth Business by Robertson Davies, that short, which I just posted last week, has 1,000 views. So yeah, 1,000 views for a short compared to 19 views for a week in review video. And the week in review is like 25 minutes and 19 views or whatever. And the short video, which is like just 3 minutes, 1,000 views. So it's kind of clear what people like more. But I don't really get too many subs off those shorts. So you'd think like 1,000 views, you'd think like, oh, at least like 20 of them could subscribe. But usually it's like 0 or 1. So yeah, apparently those 1,000 people who watch the shorts, they're not subscribing, which, kind of tells me they don't really like what they see. But still, 1,000 views, that's like Damn, that's a lot. And again, just within 1 week, 1 week, 1,000 views. And so I'll just read off like my view count for my shorts. 1,000 views, 83 views, 74 views, 56, 1,400, 520, 951, 820, 900, 48, 94, 101, 287. So yeah, whereas my regular videos, 19 views, 20 views, 14 views, 33 views, 26 views, 58 views, 25, 187, 112, 65, 68. So yeah, I mean, shorts are more popular and they only take like 3 minutes to film and like 5 minutes to edit. So yeah, I guess shorts are more popular. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not really too concerned about that. I just kind of do whatever I want, and just the views and the subscribes or whatever, those, how do I say? If I get them, I get them. If I get views, if I get subs, that's kind of more incidental. I'm not really so much trying to tailor all my videos just to get views or just to get subscriptions or whatever, even though I'd like to put out content you guys like. I don't know. So anyway, that's about it for kind of most of the week review stuff, weekend review. I should just say weekly wrap up. Do I have anything else to talk about? I don't think there's anything political I want to talk about. No major deaths this last week again, I believe. So don't really think there's much else I want to talk about. So I think that will do it for this weekly wrap up. So thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry for being so verbose, but anyway, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in another video. Bye.
2, 3, 4.